After 10 plays of Unmatched Slings and Arrows, we've got some thoughts to share.
And they're coming your way in this episode of Little Big Thumbs.
The great thing about the Unmatched series of games is that it draws from so many areas of culture. There are sets that have the Marvel characters if you want to play as Spider-Man or Squirrel Girl. There are
historical figures.
Yes, there are the characters from the public domain, and there are literary characters like in this set here. Slings and Arrows is all about Shakespearean goodness. 3 characters from 3 of Shakespeare's amazing plays, as well as the playwright himself, William Shakespeare, bringing the fight to his own characters.
There's also a new set coming that we're very excited about.
Yes.
It is the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set.
So Unmatched also has one cooperative set, and so this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle set is one of these cooperative sets where players can play as the Ninja Turtles. They're going to be fighting against Shredder or Krang, and it was so excited.
We're excited.
So excited. I watched so much Ninja Turtles growing up. Oh, by the way, you're watching Little Big Thumbs. This is a channel that's all about finding great games that are equally fun for little players and big players.
So in this video, we're going to be breaking down some of our thoughts on the Slings and Arrows set. We're going to be talking about the board, as well as the different characters and the decks that come in this set.
Right, and at the end of the video, we're going to each pick our favorite deck from this particular set, as well as offer a rating, a comparative rating, where we take this set and give it a rating in comparison to our favorite Unmatched set.
Yes, yeah, we have talked about Unmatched a fair bit on this channel. I think the last video we did it was the Sun's Origin video, where we did basically the same thing we're doing now.
Well, if you're bored of our rambling, it's time to talk about the board of Unmatched Slings and Arrows. Let's go.
The goal of Unmatched is to reduce the health of all foes to 0 through clever card play, well-timed attacks, and navigating the chosen board.
Speaking of the board, each Unmatched arena is comprised of spaces and zones. These dictate where fighters can move and battle during the game. And zones are marked by different colors and patterns, which will impact characters that are equipped with a ranged attack, as well as some card and character abilities.
Many of the boards have a flavor of their own, often tied to the set that they come from, and characters can jump in on any board. You can mix and match all of the sets, which really make for interesting storytelling because you can take a character from one universe and plop them into another one. It's very cool. Those thematic stretches are great and a lot of fun for storytelling. So right. I love that as a RPGer and storyteller myself.
Absolutely. Our friend John, who runs the Instagram account Always Be Painting. Go check out John's amazing painting skills. But whenever I play Unmatched with John, John will tell us, like, set the stage for us when especially when we're mixing and matching different sets and characters especially in the board that they're playing.
This is true. I remember some very interesting stories regarding velociraptors and I think Alice in Wonderland.
The included board in Slings and Arrows places us on the stage of London's iconic Globe Theatre, where many of Shakespeare's plays were performed in the 16th and 17th centuries.
We're able to step backstage with 2 spaces that have no ranged access, very thematic, and 4 spaces that are on stage, which can allow ranged fighters to reach nearly any space on the board.
We can also hop into the orchestra pit, into some of the balcony seating, and even some of the protected luxury boxes further back in the theater.
As we're both stage performers for, different reasons, we do different things, we've found this set to be particularly relatable and thematically fun for the both of us.
Absolutely. And it's really interesting for me the way, like, there's the backstage area, no access to other ranged fighters. The being on the stage gives you like ranged access to almost any other spot on the board. And then the further back you go in the theater, if you're in that orchestra pit, it's kind of hard to hit anybody outside of a direct like melee combat. and it's just so cool. It really lends itself to melee fighters in particular. There's only one deck in this set that has a ranged fighter included in it, so it seems, at least in our somewhat limited experience, to lend itself towards more melee fighters. And I'm really interested to bring in some of the ranged fighters from other sets to see how they perform in the theater in this particular set. If you're new to Unmatched, each deck consists of a stack of cards, sometimes a few tokens, and the main character known as a hero, which is represented by a plastic miniature, as well as a sidekick, which is represented by an acrylic disc.
The Wayward sisters buck part of this core deck construction by offering 3 heroes, each with their own health dial. Each of the sisters have 6 health for a total of 18, and each are melee fighters, meaning that when they attack, they need to be in an adjacent space on the board to their target with a little line connecting the spaces.
The special ability of the sisters is called Bubbling Brew, which makes use of a large cardboard cauldron. Once a Wayward Sisters card has been played or discarded, it goes into the cauldron instead of a discard pile. And after one of the sisters attacks, that player can remove all of the cards in the cauldron to cast a spell. The spell being cast will depend on which of the ingredients are currently in the cauldron, which can result in some powerful bonuses like drawing a card and recovering health, moving a fighter up to 3 spaces, dealing 1 damage to a fighter in their zone, or gaining an extra action.
All right, JP, so you've clearly played this deck a lot more than I have, so tell us some of your thoughts.
All right, so the Wayward Sisters, unlike a lot of the decks in the Unmatched system, they are multiple miniatures, each with their own health dial, and in order to defeat the Wayward Sisters, you have to defeat all 3 of them. A really interesting deck, and it's kind of hard to make work. It's kind of like my instinct when I play this game is to kind of lay back and see how the game's going to play out. But you can't do that with this deck, because once one of the sisters goes down, the entire deck gets a little bit weaker. And in particular, there's one card that allows there to be an attack or defense, because it's a versatile card, based on the number of different zones that the 3 sisters are in, or 2 or 1.
I remember this
You
card.
remember this
Yep.
card, right? And so that's just naturally weaker if there's 1 sister on the board. So you want to kind of get through your deck as quickly as you can to get through those cards. But of course, going through your deck quickly does have its disadvantages in Unmatched, because if you run out of cards and you have to draw a card, you're going to take damage instead of drawing that card that you don't have. Anyways, all that to say, Wayward Sisters, really interesting deck. That cauldron is unlike anything that's been done in the Unmatched system thus far. Super fun to play as these sisters. And it took me a few plays to really appreciate how this deck operates at its best.
I remember the first time we played the Slings and Arrows set when it came in, and you had played those the first night. You had played the Wayward Sisters, and I remember you like enjoying yourself, but definitely after the game was over being like, okay, I think I would do this differently, or like, oh, it would make sense if this had happened instead. And so I've enjoyed watching you grow to love them more and more and figure them out.
Yeah, and that's kind of the great thing about like committing to playing a set like this at least 10 times
Yeah.
before getting on camera, is to give ourselves the chance to really dig into each deck and get to know it really well, so that we can speak from, I don't know, I guess a point of authority, maybe. I
Yeah.
don't know.
Oh, absolutely.
A point of experience at the very least.
Hamlet is a singular hero with a starting health of 15, accompanied by his sidekick of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, which is represented by a singular sidekick disc and has a health of 6.
At the beginning of each turn, Hamlet needs to answer the most famous question of his play: to be or not to be.
This is represented by a rectangular token that will be flipped based on Hamlet's answer to the big question. When the answer is to be, the Hamlet player will draw an additional card after each maneuver action, and when it's on not to be, the player immediately deals 2 damage to one of their own fighters, but adds a +2 to all attack values for the rest of the turn.
So in the opera world, Hamlet is the subject of at least one operatic presentation, and so I've had the opportunity to work on this role a little bit, and really this deck does a great job of representing that inner conflict of the main character, the title character of the show. That really interesting thing of to be or not to be with that token at the start of every turn really like creates like a kind of a wrenching effect, emotionally wrenching decision every single turn for that player. But you've played Hamlet a fair bit yourself. What do you think, Milo?
I love Hamlet. So the quote "to be or not to be" was a quote in one of my like favorite childhood movies, which is Freaky Friday. I know this is very off topic, but whenever I hear "to be or not to be," I think of that movie, and I don't think I know a ton of Hamlet things. Well, I do now actually after playing this many times, but at the time when we first opened up this box and I was like, ooh, Hamlet, to be or not to be, I thought of that movie and that was what drew me to this. But I've learned so much, and Hamlet is a dynamic character, like in the game, but also like in the story in Hamlet. And I totally get what you mean with the like inner turmoil and back and forthness. I love the to be or not to be. It is super powerful, and knowing like when to flip it to what side was really interesting. And sometimes you think you made the right decision, but you never know what somebody else has. So it really depends. But I really liked playing Hamlet.
Sure. What I love about this deck is the way that it turns versatile cards against your opponent. Where if your opponent plays a versatile card, the card is canceled. It has no value at all.
Yep.
It's a tremendous aspect of the game where this card that is so valuable, it's so useful, could kind of be kind of a nothing burger when you bring it out into the game.
Yes, absolutely. There's also a card. It's oh, yes. Okay. It like ends somebody's turn after a combat.
Yes.
That can really surprise somebody and put a sour taste in their mouth.
Absolutely. If that's played it's a defense card. If it's played in the first turn of your opponent's turn, the first action of your opponent's turn, that just ends their turn.
Yeah.
So mean.
Yes.
So mean.
Yeah, especially if they had like played a card that gave them an extra action that turn, then they lose the extra action. Oh my goodness, that's nasty.
Titania is from Shakespeare's great comedy, A Midsummer Night's Dream. And Titania is the queen of the fairies. She starts with a starting health of 12 and is the only ranged fighter in this set. She is sidekicked by the king of the fairies, Oberon, who is a melee fighter and starts with 6 health.
In addition to Titania's regular deck, there is a smaller deck called Glamours, and this is to sort of introduce the magical prowess of her.
And that feeds into the special ability of this deck called Fairy Magic. At the start of Titania's turn, if there is no Glamour card face up, we flip one over, and that's going to provide an ongoing effect that kind of bends and breaks the rules of the game to benefit these ethereal magical creatures.
So when I was in high school, I was actually in A Midsummer Night's Dream, and I didn't play one of the fairies. I was a Peter Quince, but I remember all of the fairy costumes and Oberon and everyone, honestly, as if it were last week. Those costumes were so beautiful, and whenever we play this game, all I can think about is the play and being there and picturing my high school friends dancing around the board and fighting each other.
That's amazing. I love that. I was also in A Midsummer Night's Dream. There's a tremendous opera written by Benjamin Britten, and I got to play Nick Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream. Good friends with Peter Quince, of course, and so I got to be the one transformed into a donkey, into an ass, and great to have like that personal connection to a deck like this. But speaking about the mechanics of the game, those glamour cards are so cool. They're so cool. And as fairies do, it fairies defy the laws of nature, just like these glamour cards defy the laws of Unmatched. And the neat thing about that isn't just that they exist, but also the deck also is constantly tempting the Titania player to discard their current glamour in order to get some sort of cool one-time effect. In addition to that, they're always like flying around the board, have the opportunity to sometimes switch spots, like a lot to like trickery.
Oh, yes.
Which is so
Fairy-esque.
it's so Midsummer Night's Dream. So this is such a fun deck, and it's really unique to anything else in the Unmatched universe with that little side deck of goodies.
The centerpiece of this whole Unmatched set is Shakespeare himself. The master playwright is a melee fighter with a starting health of 13. Shakespeare has 3 actors as his sidekicks, which are also melee fighters. These don't have health dials because a single hit will knock each of these sidekicks off the board.
There's something comical and yet slightly bruising about the way these actors, these sidekicks, are just so disposable. But I'll try not to take it personally as a performer myself. Now, Shakespeare's special ability is a unique one, and it's called iambic pentameter. Each card name in Shakespeare's deck has little dots on them, marking the number of syllables on the name of that card. When a card is used to attack or defend, that card is placed into a line on the table, as we're writing a line of our very own violent play with them. And if that line can build up to exactly 10 syllables, the player will be able to trigger the extra special ability listed on the last card played in that line.
However, if the line extends beyond 10 syllables, all of the cards are discarded and will need to start from scratch again.
So we've talked about the Unmatched game design competition from a few years ago, and the Shakespeare deck was one of the winning decks from that competition, and it's easy to see why. The iambic pentameter mechanic is so cool. It's so fun to see how it plays out in the game, and it really creates some like struggle in the player as they figure out when to play the right cards to get the right number of syllables down on the table to trigger that extra special ability.
Yes, yes, that is exactly what I was going to say about it. It is very puzzly almost, like trying to do the math about, adding it up to 10. Not that 10 is a hard number to count to, but it requires more strategy than you would expect, and that was one of my favorite parts about Shakespeare.
Absolutely. And this deck in the hands of a talented player is devastating. It's really easy for a Shakespeare player to run away with the game if the other players aren't prepared for what they've got in store for you. Really cool, powerful, and really, it truly is the centerpiece of the deck. And there are even cards in the game that allow the master playwright to manipulate his own creations on the board. And that's just a really neat aspect that ties the whole set together.
Yes, when we first opened up this set, I remember I knew that Shakespeare was an option. I was like, oh, cool, Shakespeare, but he was a real dude. I want to play somebody who was made up and fantastical, like one of his characters. Clearly they're going to be way more fun to play than Shakespeare himself. No, no, no. I love playing Shakespeare.
All right, Milo, it's time. We've talked about the 4 decks included in Slings and Arrows, and now it's time to pick your favorite of all 4. What do you got to say?
Well, I think I've played a lot of Unmatched sets, all of them. I've played so many games of Unmatched, but I think this is the closest it's come between sets and trying to pick my favorite of that set. So it is Shakespeare, and I think that's for a variety of reasons. I was really excited when we were talking about him a minute ago. I think part of that comes from being a poet myself. I do spoken word poetry sometimes, and that's been really fun to do the iambic pentameter and read the silly 10-syllable phrase that doesn't always make sense, but like I said, I love the puzzliness of it all. And Shakespeare can be very, very powerful, and I just love what you're able to do with him. He's a lot of fun. And I mean, thanks to him, we have all of these other characters in the first place.
True. True words were spoken by you. My favorite deck of this set is not Shakespeare. My favorite deck is Titania. I love. I mean, I've said earlier how Midsummer Night's Dream is an important work to me as a performer, and so I'm just more connected to this deck. I love the glamours and how it like breaks the rules of the game. I love that as a bottom performer that there is a donkey card in the deck where I see myself literally represented, and I just love the playfulness of the decisions that are brought in the game, whether or not I'm gonna discard my glamour in order to get those extra things, the way I can kind of move around the board with Oberon and Titania together to do some damage. It's so fun. It's so fun.
Magical.
It's magical. Absolutely, absolutely. So those are our favorites of this particular set. And now it's time to drop our rating for Slings and Arrows. As a reminder, we're not just doing a willy-nilly draw a number out of a hat rating. We are we're giving a rating based on as a comparison to our favorite Unmatched set. And as a reference from last time, I believe your favorite was Houdini versus the Genie. And my favorite is the original Battle of Legends Volume 1. So, Milo, if you are giving Slings and Arrows a rating 1 through 10, how are you rating Slings and Arrows versus Houdini versus the Genie?
Oh, okay. This is hard. Okay, you know what? I think that Slings and Arrows is a 9.
A 9.
I think it's a 9 for me, honestly. Yeah, I love Houdini versus the Genie. But I think from that set, I mostly love Houdini an extreme amount. I like the Genie. I like him, but Houdini I'm like obsessed with. But in comparison to this set, Slings and Arrows, I mean, I do love Shakespeare and I am obsessed with him, but I love all of the others so much. And it was hard to decide. So I think overall, I think that this is a 9 for me. I really, really love Slings and Arrows.
Great. All right. So for me, comparing Slings and Arrows to Battle of Legends Volume 1, I'm giving Slings and Arrows an 11 out of 10.
Okay, yeah.
Slings and Arrows is my favorite Unmatched set. It has eclipsed Battle of Legends Volume 1 for me, and it is now the benchmark that all future Unmatched sets are going to be compared by going forward. The decks are individually fun to play. The board ties it all together in a tremendous way. The way Shakespeare interacts with his own creations, everything about this deck makes it just sing in the perfect way possible for me. And so that's why Slings and Arrows is my absolute favorite set of Unmatched that has come out thus far.
If you've played Slings and Arrows, let us know in the comments below who your favorite character was. And if you haven't, well, what are you waiting for? And who are you most excited to play? Let us know.
Awesome. And if you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you can follow along with all of the other Unmatched and other board game type content that we have coming your way in the weeks and months to come. So that's it for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you to Restoration Games for sending us a review copy of Slings and Arrows to help us along with our 100 play challenge in 2024. And I think that's going to be it. So until next time, whether you've got little players
or big players,
make sure that you keep playing games
that make your thumbs go way up. Bye.
Bye for now.